Welcome to episode 2 of the Sideletters podcast, the weekly B2B insights on film, tech, and future business in Europe. Made for professionals and decision makers in the creative economy, such as you, the Sideletters is a conversation between us, 3 European producers, and our guests, exploring what's going on in the markets, and we share our individual perspectives on that. It's February 18, and today we've got a special episode for you. Joanna and I are reporting directly from a busy European film market. Jennifer's off this week and will join us next one. And Joanna, whose newest film Dust premiered in competition on Sunday, delivers a dispatch, including the key discussions at the market. And I sat down with Yohann Comte, co-founder and chairman of French sales company Charades, whose animated feature A New Dawn by Yoshitoshi Shinomiya is premiering tonight in competition here at the Berlinale. And of course, we will see why all of this matters for the creative industry in Europe. I'm Fabian Massah, a producer working in Berlin and Hamburg. And my co-host is Joanna, Szymanska, producer from Warsaw. Joanna, we're curious to hear what you have for us.
Thank you, Fabian, for the introduction. So here it is, my very, very personal Berlinale dispatch, in which I will try to summarize the key topics, key discussions I've overheard or attended, and to bring you into the heart of the EFM and in the heart of the Festival of Berlinale 2026. Just for the clarity and to set the ground, I spent most of my time in the new media kind of innovation hub. So if you were following documentary or animation panels, or if this is what you're after, you probably had a completely different festival, probably completely different market than mine. But the rooms in which I sat and the conversations I heard were very much inspiring. And going back to the feeling of the market of the previous years, I feel that we have moved as an industry from how do we survive this crazy reality into something far more practical, into something that I would sum up as this building attitude, this entrepreneurial attitude, where we look at what we have and what we actually can build with it. I will be perfectly clear, this is still a ball on the Titanic, and everybody knows this. But what was different at this year's Berlinale is that I think people have stopped waiting for somebody to come to the rescue, and they've started to build the lifeboats themselves. And being in Berlin, it's hard not to feel how relevant this is, because this city, invented the reinvention. In the 1980s, West Berlin was this stage, this walled-off island of radical culture. Nobody was looking for any green lights. Nobody was looking for any permissions. People were just trying to tell their stories with, punk music, David Bowie, or the whole queer underground art scene that was thriving precisely because nobody was there to save it. And I feel this is where we are again, because nobody is coming to save our industry. And I think people know that, and they start to act accordingly, which is very, very different from the despair and nihilism I felt and sensed in the last years. Before I get into market conversations, I want to talk about something that really set the tone from day one of the market, and it never really left the room. It was, of course, the jury press conference on the opening day, and the remark coming from some of the jury members that was received as a declaration that cinema has to stay out of politics. And of course, there was a media storm that followed, which was very messy and probably much bigger than the moment deserved. My reading of what the jury actually said, just to be fair here, is that it was more about the right to form an opinion in your own time, the right to express yourself in a form you actually choose, rather than being forced into an immediate, compressed kind of 20-second hot take where you declare which side of a very complex conflict you're on. And I can understand the jury's discomfort in this position, especially if you are about to handle out prestigious awards and the most important film festival. You want to be this impartial authority. But my personal take on it and my personal stand is that I believe that cinema is political, and not because films have to declare themselves on one or other side of every conflict. We are living in extremely polarized societies. But cinema is political because making creative work with a point of view is a political act. And to experience that, all you had to do was really walk out of the Gropiusbau and go to one of the screenings. And I'll mention just a few examples. You know, Priscilla's Kellen Papaya in the Generation section. It's a wordless animated film about a tiny seed, aptly named papaya, in an Amazon forest. And the seed has to keep moving to survive. And at a certain point, sorry for the spoiler, it discovers the power of her roots, of being grounded. And that triggers a revolution. And that was absolutely phenomenal political film. Another title from the Perspective section, Chronicles from the Siege, is a very moving personal account of living in a reality of constant fear and constant uncertainty. And that was also extremely political, also in the way how this film was made through Palestinian and Algerian filmmakers working together. And if you really wanted to experience the real untamed political wave, you should look no further than the anniversary Teddy 40 selection. Most of the films in that section are still relevant. They are still commenting on the reality of 2026, despite being produced and having premiered in the last 40 years. And having an opinion is and always have been political, and putting something in the world that describes how people live, what they fear, what they want, that is a political action. And in all the discussions during the festival regarding this topic, I seem we have forgotten or confused somewhere at certain points that artists should perform their political expression through their work rather than through a press conference or a catchy social media post. And this brings me to this year's selection, because I think that this year's selection is really outstanding. And what the whole programming team is doing, and I applaud them for that, is they are forcing us to do the work, to do the intellectual work. This year's Berlinale, for many people, myself included, felt like this is what a festival should really be. A place for discovery, a place that demands something from you as a viewer. And yes, of course, that demands an effort from the market as well. Because instead of this easy sale, this sort of shiny, recognizable title or shiny, recognizable name that sells itself on, just on the face value basis, there are so many projects here that have to be found, and films that you actually have to craft the story about. So you, as a sales agent, as a distributor, as a film critic, really need to put in some work to make them accessible, to make them to be discovered by the audiences. And I think this is something that connects much deeper to what was also discussed a lot at the EFM, which is, of course, the audiences. And it was repeated constantly that audiences are fragmented, and that is true. But what is actually true behind that sentence is also that there is hunger for much more diverse content. And the question is not about the IP anymore. It's more about the story about the story. How do you address your audience? How do you make them understand that this is a film that will matter to them? And I think this is the area in which the real innovation is happening right now. Not that much on the IP end and the kind of star power behind each title, but in the audience research. And this brings me to the market. And here are some key topics that were discussed and that I found very, very interesting. First of all, AI conversations. This year, they felt genuinely different. Nobody was really selling any miracles here. The producers I have talked to were very matter of fact about use of AI. They acknowledge that this technology allows you to test more, to move faster, to see opportunities that you would have normally missed because you just don't have the bandwidth to analyze all the proposals you're receiving. But also, everybody was underlining the need of an AI human-centered mindset. And there was far less of this AI hype. The conversations were very practical. It was very clear that mastering the technology and making it work to your benefit takes time and expertise and real investment. And the promise of this fast and cheap solution just doesn't materialize. To use AI in your company, you have to build the infrastructure first, and that is a real barrier for many of the smaller production companies. Another trendy word that was there thrown around is transmedia. It's back. Welcome back to 2010s. A constant refrain I heard was that you cannot afford to think about one platform anymore. Cinema is maybe a go-to option, but not the only option. Because if you're not considering how your story works vertically, horizontally, as a podcast, as a graphic novel, as a game, you are literally leaving money on the table. The term that was coined last year at the Berlinale, liquid IP, is still very much here and is being approached by producers from different angles. Another thing that was discussed and was quite present, especially in the market discussion among organizations and among professionals and policymakers, was the Agora EU proposal of European Commission. The general feeling in the industry is that the current proposal has certain threats to the existence of the diverse European cinema. When you look at the 35-year history of program media, it has been a genuine success story. It was supporting filmmakers, independent producers, exhibitors, distributors, training programs. It was creating and cultivating the actual ecosystem of our industry. But the current proposal of Agora EU is looking like it's moving to dissolve media program and whole audiovisual culture in a much larger pot that covers news media, journalism, fighting disinformation, citizens' rights, all that. And these are all worthy things, but the proposal itself lacks transparency in budget division. There are no guaranteed funds for audiovisual culture, and there is no protection of the independent independent producers that has defined media for the last 35 years. So the negotiations of Agora EU are still up and running. They will go on for the next couple of months. So if you're listening to this podcast, now is the moment to make yourself informed and involved. We will surely be coming back to these discussions. And the last panel I want to mention is Filmy Vast session called Film Industry's Got Talent. And yes, it was exactly what it sounds like. It was like a full You've Got Talent format, transplanted into a policy discussion with complete jury feedback and a wonderful moderation from AC Coppens. Shout out to you, AC. 4 practitioners pitched concrete proposals to a jury of senior figures, and then they discussed the outcome of proposed solutions. So the problems on the table that were discussed is, of course, the share of European films in the market, how much public money is subsidizing American IP through the tax incentive, and how to bring back young audiences to cinemas. I will not sum up the whole discussion here. I direct you to Film Invest website and to the work Thomas Eskilsson and his team are doing. Great reports, great publications. You will find the link to them in the notes to this podcast. But be assured that this new format, that this entertaining way of talking about our industry problems was really the most creative and most fun panel of the entire week. So this is it. I am leaving Berlin tired, like most of you, but I feel it's a good kind of tired. This kind of tired that comes from being around people who know exactly what needs to be done and what needs to be changed. And they are actually trying to do something about it because, as I said, nobody's coming to save our industry but us. See you guys and hear you guys next week.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for this personal insight. And I really wish that I would have been with you on all these events. We're now moving to the conversation that I had with Yohann Comte from Charades. He's the chairman of this very successful sales agent. He just won the Best Innovation Distribution Award at the Hamburg Film Festival at the International Film Distribution Summit there. And his company handles successful films such as Kneecap and Flow, the Oscar-winning animation. And we had a conversation about their approach in acquiring projects, what's so special about the competition title that they have, and how the market might have changed in his perception. I hope you enjoy it. So we had the conversation in the lobby of the Hyatt Hotels, and there's a lot of background noise. I hope that's okay. And he also has a kind of craggy voice, and I think this underlines the busy market that we're all experiencing here. I hope you enjoy it. Johann, thanks for joining us here at the European Film Market at the EFM. And for the listeners who might not know Charade, you co-founded the company?
Yes.
And you serve as its chairman. And can you give us in a nutshell what Charade does and what makes you distinctive in the whole sales landscape?
The company was founded almost 9 years ago. We are three partners, Carole, Baraton, Pierre Massah, and me. So from the beginning, it was a really, collective effort to try and keep a really diversified lineup from, kids film to horror film, going through a lot of art house film as well that go to festival. So that was, I think, we were one of the first tech company to have so much diversity. Meaning that we would rather have one film for 15 different distributors than 15 films for the same distributor, which implies a lot of meetings during the markets because of the diversity of that lineup. And also, we have a really young team. We're around 16 today. I think that most of them are below 30, which was for us a way to keep our finger on the pulse of a young audience. We started to do co-production recently because for the film to be sold, they need to be financed. So we had to find every possibility we can to support the producers. And so also one of the specificities of that company, as I said, we are very collective, but we also co-sell with other sales agents. We did it with Anton, with New Europe, with What the Film, with Film Nation. And maybe we'll try to partner with other company if it makes sense.
And how many films do you put in your lineup every year as an average?
I think we try to limit our appetite, but sometimes it's difficult because, as I say, we love a lot, a very large variety of film, but we try to keep it to 15. 15, knowing that we received last year, 960 projects.
Like projects on the script stage, but also finished films all together.
Yes, but the majority is on the script.
Yeah. I mean, the success speaks for yourself. I mean, you had an incredible run with Flow, the film that got an Oscar, the animated film. And this year you have the film A New Dawn by Yoshitoshi Shinomiya in the competition at the Berlinale. It's a Japanese animation on the main competition that's relatively rare. And it's premiering tonight. Tell us a bit about the film and how it came about that you decided to represent its international sales. Did you work with the director before, for example?
No, it was the first time we were working with the director. It was luck. I mean, the incredible thing is that it's the first feature film in competition. And it's true that the last two Japanese animated feature films that were selected in competition were Suzume, so by Makoto Shinkai, who directed Your Name, and the one before was Spirited Away. So there's a bit of pressure on that film, but at the same time, we were just so happy to be here. We were looking at his work. We knew the producer. We knew also the co-producer, Miyu, the French co-producer with whom we've done around 5 films. And then I traveled to Japan all the time. The first animated feature film we worked on in the company was Mirai by Mamoru Soda, which was nominated for an Oscar. And since then, I think it gave us working with Mamoru Soda gave us credibility to work with other Japanese director. But yes, after the year we had with Flow, we thought it was done. And then comes New Dawn, which is in competition. So that's The animation has always brought us a lot of luck. We had also a nomination for I Lost My Body and another one for Memoir of a Snail, which was also nominated along Flow last year.
Well, congratulations. And what is the film about? Is it an animation film for grown-ups, I guess, right? Or is it for the family? Flow was kind of crossover. How is A New Dawn?
New Dawn as well, I would say. I don't want to reveal too much about the film, but there's different layers of text, and contrary to a lot of anime, which are more destined to the young adult audience, this is really like probably more appealing to adults than most of the anime, and that's the reason why it's here, and also it's visually absolutely stunning. The director also had worked on the fireworks scene of Your Name. That's also one of the thing that was reassuring for us, and it was spotted by very reliable producers. So we got on board on the script 2 or 3 years ago.
Are you handling more animated movies after the Flow success, or is it like is it? I mean, how do you sell it? Is it the different playbook also what you experienced, or do you cater to a quite similar market that also takes your live action films?
Well, there are distributors that are specialized in anime, but there's not so many distributors specialized in animation outside of France and US, for instance, where you have J Kids in the US and KMBO in France. But the specificity of animation is that you usually get on board 2 years, 3 years before, and there's not so many, so you know the landscape of the other films, and it's usually a decision that is being taken very early. So we always had a lot of animation because that was the thing that we had in common with Carol and Pierre, my partners. Carol was selling all the Ghibli film when she was head of international at Wild Bunch, and Pierre was VP international at Studio Canal, where he was selling the Studio Arman movie, and I was selling also the film at Gaumont before, and Ballerina, for instance. So we really had in common animation, and then and we've always had a lot. We won 3 times in a row the Crystal in Annecy. Um, but at the same time, I mean, we were more as we were more buying a lot of animation. Other sales agents started to pay also more attention to animation. It's true that the adult animation has become a bit more accessible and successful with films like I Lost My Body or Mars Express, for instance. So we're not buying more animation. There are years we don't control the schedule, and sometimes, I mean, the production schedule gets late, so you can have one film that is deliverable 1 year later than you planned. 2 years ago, we had 6 film out of 12, I think, out of 18 other in competition in Nancy. Last year we had none. This year we have 5.
Okay, it's unpredictable.
Yeah,
It stays,
exactly.
yeah, it's the nature of the hit business that we have. And do you see also? I mean, I'm speaking about the technical revolution around AI tools that making animation films actually becomes also interesting. That's what I perceive for some producers who never did that, but to consider it because development cost apparently might go down with the tools that you have to create a pre-visualization. But on the other hand, not all of the producers have the experience to really pull an animation off. Do you see that in your submissions that you get, that more and more producers who are not traditionally animation producers come with animation projects to you because they are interested in doing this? Do you perceive that?
No, not so much, because like an animation producer can produce live action, but a live action producer cannot really produce animation because it's so specific that and so difficult. You know, if you compare the amount of animated feature film produced every year to the live action film, you realize that there cannot be many like that many producers venturing into that, because you do one film every 3 years. It's not difficult. It's difficult to be sustainable when it takes so much time to finance and produce. When it comes to AI, it's still really early to say. Right now, there are films that are entirely done in AI. There are already a few festivals dedicated to AI, but right now it's totally separated, I would say. There's a lot of course, of worry from especially in animation, that it could replace some of the artists. But so far, AI is a really difficult question. It's not taboo at all because, there's a lot of VFX or images that can be, generated by computer. So it's just that AI will depend on prompting, and the level of the AI depends on the level of prompting. So it's really difficult to evaluate right now as it's evolving every week.
Some words maybe about the market in general, how you perceive it. Maybe you need some time to reflect, of course, but just spontaneously, what's your read on the buyer activity compared to last year? Is it more active or are still waiting? The people are more hesitant? But what's your perception?
No, I would say it's still the same. It's like, I mean, as I've started that job like almost 20 years ago, people have been complaining for 20 years, saying it was more difficult. It was the end of cinema because of piracy, and then it was COVID, and then cinema always survives. It's just that there are countries that, depending usually, like for instance, on the political regime, or culture. Usually, like for instance, Bolsonaro in Brazil was not really good. This good news for culture, and it was more difficult to send film to Brazil. And now it's getting better. There are countries like Mexico where animation, for instance, is exploding, and then there are Spain was super active, and now everybody has calmed down. France is always dynamic, but they all buy the same film and they all want the same film. So US was difficult. It still is, but there are newcomers like Sumerian, Roque, Sideshow, Janus, who's more active on theatrical films. So the landscape is changing. It's never been easy, but it's not more difficult than ever, I would say.
As a producer, I'm interested because we had this conversation last week with Tanya, and there's a lot of talk also in the industry about how producers package their project, because now it's not only about for a decade, people were just speaking about IP, I need original IP, I need this brand or whatever. But now people are more and more talking about the brand might be something, but more important is how do you create attention and where do you find your audience? For example, that if we think about telling a story, we might think about a feature film, but at the same time, we think about what other channels could the film be marketed at. And do you see a change also from your side as a sales agent that producers would come to you and they say, look, I got a story, I want to make a movie, but later on, I also want to make a series about it when it's successful. And would you also handle them more than just a movie? Is that something that would evolve also in the sales market, that you handle more rights than you did before?
Not for us, or maybe for the bigger company, because the people we talk, the buyers, are totally different when it comes to TV series and feature film. It's really, for instance, not our expertise to be in contact with TV station, I wouldn't know who to sell them to.
Plus, your main client is the distributors, right?
Always, yeah, distributors, mainly theatrical distributors. We almost never sell to streamers. We work with studios, with independent distributors, always pushing for theatrical releases, because that's usually what gives the value of the film in the long run, and they are really director-driven. So the brand for us is the director and the talent, or also the producers, because they are the ones we only work with. We work with great producers, especially when you do a first or second feature film, which we do a lot. Most of the time, you want to do it on a first, an experienced director with an experienced producer. When we started the company, people were saying that, we should have started a TV company, that cinema was dying, blah, blah, blah. Well, you look now it's after the COVID, I don't know, like the TV series business is in crisis and everybody is going back to cinema. So
you probably see it also in your submissions that you get, that everybody's, people develop their stories for a series and now they're pivoting into movies. and all the slates of funding applications and, distributors are just, they're really getting swamped. But in the end, I mean, it's a selective process and you're like at the forefront of curation as a sales agent. I mean, you've been doing this for many years, and what's different about how deals get done now compared to when you started? So what has fundamentally changed, or is it still the same? It's just faster?
I would say recently, or that's my hope, that after the COVID, the type of audience that went back to the cinema was much younger before the films were made. For the elderly educated audience was always going to see the same directors. And recently we feel that a younger audience is coming back to the cinema to see classics, to see fresh voices. And so our company that was initially, there was everything not to succeed, meaning like three veterans or whatever, but three experienced people, which means the company would, the average would be high immediately. So we needed to immediately work without the credibility to work with established directors. So we went for first feature film immediately at a time where it was really difficult because everybody was going for the safe, established author. But the first film we did and co-produced was Revenge by Coralie Farjar, and you need a bit of luck when you start. We had that luck. The first film we had, so first Cannes, we had Mirai at Director's Fortnight, an animation. We had Diamantino in Critics Week, which ended up winning Critics Week, and then we had Leto by Kirill Serebrennikov in competition. That was, so we got lucky immediately. So what I would say, what has evolved is the appetite for fresh voices and a younger audience going to the cinema. And a younger audience is, so for some distributors, it's tough. It's the toughest audience to reach because they're a bit unpredictable and they don't rely on, say, like the old or like the classic.
Like legacy social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the big change, which is good. I mean, there's a renewal of audience that was necessary. It's a good thing.
I understand these so-called safe bets IP also have a different risk profile, right? I mean, if you do debut films, there may be a lower risk in terms of investment because usually budgets are cheaper and they don't expect too much from sales, as an upfront, as a minimum guarantee. Yeah. So it's a different risk profile. While when I buy as a producer, if I buy an expensive IP, I expect, of course, the market to pay that back to me. And this is another risk profile, I bet also. So that you went with the first-time directors in the beginning, right? And you still have, I mean, like films like Kneecap, I think Kneecap was a debut as well, right?
Yeah, Kneecap was a debut.
Yeah, amazing film.
After Sun was a debut. Sorry Baby was a debut. Yeah. Flo is a second feature film, but the first one he did it totally alone. So we have always like those happy accidents, I would say. So these are the films that takes a lot of time to study because, I mean, you're not going to think if you have the chance to work on the next film by Asghar Farhadi, like we do, you don't have to think if you want to do it. You don't have to analyze anything. When it comes to first feature film, you need to really, study the team, look at the shots, evaluate everything. Of course, there's a lot of instinct, but it's true that a first feature film is a lower investment, but sometimes once you invest, let's say, 50,000 euros or MG on a first feature film plus 50,000 euros of expenses, you can lose 100,000 euros. And it's riskier than betting on a really big director where your 2 millions are going to be recouped because you have the historic of the level.
You're right. But in the end, it's maybe the mix, right, of the portfolio. You have some higher bets and some lower bets.
No, because we didn't have access. We didn't want to steal directors from other companies. And so we had to grow with the director. So we still, and 8 years, for instance, in the life of a filmmaker, except if you're co-head or François Ozon, can be just 2 films. So now starting to, to have the second film of the director we work with, and from time to time, there's we have Dominique Mode or Julia Ducournau or Asghar Farhadi. But most of the lineup is first or second.
But you want to build the talent and create a home also for the talent that you believe in, so that your first-time directors become
Yeah, we want to keep them
bigger
not
under your
build-
wings. Yeah.
build the, build the film builds the profile, but now we're quite credible when it comes to first and second. We had Armand 2 years ago at Cannes, which won the Camera d'Or. We want to keep the director. The problem is that, especially for the English-speaking director, when the first film is too good, then you never see them again because they go to studio or bigger company. Like it happened with Coralie Farja, who did The Substance after Rose Bigger, or with the director of After Sun, who's now has a project with A24. It happens a lot. It's part of the game.
Yeah. Now, give us a bold prediction. We all asked as our guest, give us a bold prediction about 2030, like 4 or 5 years from now. What's something you believe that maybe others in the industry don't believe it's going to happen? Are we just watching films as a holograph? No, I'm just kidding. But is there anything in the market that you predict? It's playful.
Theatrical, it's really difficult to anticipate because now everybody's back on focusing on theatrical. The concentration of the market, like Netflix and Warner Bros., is never a good thing. So in 5 years, I don't see. There will always be for more curating. When digital arrived, we were saying like, okay, now anyone can do a film. Now it's the same. Stress or concern when it comes to AI. So, but the more film can be done, the more curating you need. And I think the cinema is a place of curation, and then the offer is so wide right now, and there's like 15 streamer that going into the cinema next to you, which curates the film and select them, will be one of the trends, more curating.
Yeah, and you have more choice probably that you have to run through because more people apply or submit their works to you. Okay. So I just want to wrap it up here. Thank you so much. It has been incredibly insightful. And for producers or filmmakers listening who might want to work with Charades, I guess you will be happy of finding more submissions. What are you looking for? What makes a project right for your slate, apart of being like for example, a debut film of a filmmaker with some great short films and a great script, or vision? As you said, like if it's a first-time director, you want to have experienced producers on their sides. Is that something that helps in the process, or is there any specific genre that you're looking at?
We are super open to anything. We have absolutely no criteria, but it's true that we're always looking for film with a little bit of an edge. So, a self-indulgent social drama will not be our priority. Yeah, anything with an edge, with a strong character, strong vision. Even the children film is a director-driven film. So I think, director-driven, any type. The problem is that's why we receive so many projects, because we're super open to.
For me as a producer, it's always finding the right momentum, because sometimes even with the early project, if it's kind of hot, the director is hot, I would approach sales, of course. Sometimes I would package this first, budget it, and then come, to have a more solid decision basis for you. But is there anything that you say you want to enter talks about a project when it has a certain stage, at least script, or if there's a momentum, can people come earlier to you?
No, usually it's on script, and then and it's pretty much the same for every sales agent. We receive too many projects, or not too many, but like so many projects already that we don't read twice. So it's better to arrive with a mature project, script stage, with the cast in place and some local financing in place, because if you don't have local financing in place and you're looking already for an international partner, it's not reassuring. But then sometimes we read, and often sometimes there's a half pass, and sometimes we love the script. It's very execution dependent, the shots, or we're not sure how the film is going to look. So we would prefer to see it completed. If we have a chance, but we're taking the risk of having another sales agent buying on script. So
exactly, yeah, okay.
And there's no good moment, I would say, to submit a project, because it's packed all the time. It's true that right before big events like Berlinale or Cannes, it's not a good time, but then all along the year.
All right. So, and where can people find Charades? What's your website?
It's charades.eu. And then you can always find us on Zalando.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us here at the EFM. And best of luck with the premiere of A New Dawn tonight.
Thank you so much. Sorry for my voice again.
It's fine, we have good post-production. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks to Yohann Comte and my co-host Joanna, Szymanska and Jennifer Sabai Imagine. Make sure you follow our community on LinkedIn. That's simply the Sideletters. And see you next Wednesday when we will be back with B2B insights on the creative industries in Europe.